Hi, everybody. It's Liz. I am here just to share my thoughts with you today and hope you are weathering all that comes with the week of Thanksgiving and the launch of the holiday season. And I just hope you're doing well with that and are able to carve out a little bit of peace and quiet in your mind, if nothing else, amongst all the other busyness around it. But today I thought I would share a little bit about my story and kind of how I ended up as a coach and a little bit about the journey of me getting here and also a little bit of things I'm excited about doing in the future. So, yeah, my name's Liz. I live in Asheville, North Carolina. I'm the mom of two little boys, a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and I have a husband and this whole life that is super wonderful. And when I had my oldest son, the way my brain worked just wasn't jiving with all the added extra responsibilities and logistics of being a mom. And it's been something that I've been thinking about looking into for a long time. And so the going back a little bit, my senior year of college, I advocated to get tested for learning disabilities. And I've always knew that my brain worked in a different way than others, and I worked really hard for things, much harder than other people around me was my perception. But I just like plowed on and trudged through and just made it happen and just like was so determined to not seem outside the box or seem weird or seem have anyone know of how hard I really had to work in school. And so I just trudged through and powered on. And then by the time my senior year came around, I could see the window closing of being able to have any testing be paid for. And I was like, I really like to figure this out and figure out how my brain works on a deeper level before I graduate. And so the thing about it was that I was asking around, and the feedback I was getting from a variety of places was, well, why would you do this testing now? I mean, you're done, like you've made it. Because I was about to graduate undergrad. And I remember thinking like, what do you mean I've made it? I'm 20 or 21. Like I'm going to have this brain the rest of my life. Like I hope this isn't it and that life is just done and I've completed the task and it's over. Like that's ridiculous. And so I kind of pushed through and fought on and got testing done. And it came back with quite a few learning disabilities in a lot of different categories, which was super validating and also super intense because I was leaving the safety net and structure of a school environment and going out into the real world. And so I got all this information that was really validating and really made it seem like, okay, there is something going on and I'm not going crazy, and all that. And they gave recommendations of things that they would suggest in a school environment. However, I seriously had 1 semester left. So I took one test with extra time and totally bombed it because it was so out of my norm and it was too quiet. And I was just like, ugh. And then didn't really have any of those skills. And then I just launched into the real world knowing that on paper I had all these things that were labeled, but hadn't lived with any coping skills or tools of what to do with it. And so that was super interesting. And during that testing, they kind of glanced over and were like, there might be some attention things going on, but I wouldn't, maybe you can look into it later. I wouldn't worry about it. And just kind of totally blew it off. And so I had that attention piece in the back of my mind since. But I plowed on and did a lot of cool things and I don't know, did a bunch of stuff. But cut to, which I can talk about later, but cut to becoming a mom, my stress level and everything just kind of blew up. And so I was on Facebook one night and there was a test about how ADHD presents in women. And I was just like, women and adults and women. And I was like, oh, haha. And I was sitting right here in my kitchen nook and my husband was cleaning or cooking or something over there at the sink right behind you. And I was like, oh, I'll just take this test. This would be so funny. And I started reading the questions. And the first one, it was like, oh, that's funny. Yeah, that makes sense. And the second one, it was like, yeah, that one too. And then by the third one, it was like, all right, yep. And then going through the test, it was like, okay, yeah, this totally is lining up. And it wasn't funny anymore. And it was like, all right, I have something to look into, and I went to my doctor and then she referred me to this amazing guy named Rudy Rodriguez here in town who is he's a specialist that works with adults with ADHD. And so I got connected with him and then I got formally diagnosed. And I don't know, only because it would allow me the option to try medicine if I wanted to in the future. And then he does a support group once a month, which has been super impactful of meeting other people who operate in a similar way. And so I just really immersed myself, and it was this real missing piece around me and how I operate and all these things that I had just totally thought was just me. And so, and I also learned how it presents so differently in girls and in women than typically in boys and in men. And so I mean, it blew the doors open of insight and whatever. And I've been kind of sorting through all that for quite a while of what do I do with this information, and how does that define me? And, and I never felt like a deficit, I was like, I think I have a lot to offer, like it sometimes is put into such a negative context of like being atypical or having a deficit or, all these things, which, having attention struggles definitely doesn't make some things easy, but it has so many other strengths to it, and when I'm in a clear and like calm and centered space, that's so obvious. When I'm not clear and I'm struggling and stressed out and just swamped with details that aren't really in my comfort zone, then it's easy to get super down on myself and just feel the weight of it all. And so, so it's been a really interesting and impactful and an eye-opening experience. And from that, it's impossible not to look back to my childhood where there was just so many times where I could tell I was thinking about something differently or looking at something differently, or was just lost and didn't know really what was going on. And somewhere along the line, I made in my little kid logical brain like the decision of like, that's not okay, and I need to hide this, and I need to present myself in this perfect way that lines up with what I think I should be doing and what everyone else seems to be saying I should be doing. So I'm not found out. And, and it developed kind of this imposter syndrome situation where even if I achieved something, I still never took credit for it or felt good about it deep down, because it was like, yeah, I just fooled them, or they don't know that I procrastinated that and I pushed it off and I just kind of half-assed it. So like, I'm fooling everyone that I can do things, or that I'm smart, or that I can achieve things in a real way, because I never felt like I was giving my fullest effort, because I would procrastinate or whatever. Whatever. And so my outward presence was fighting really hard to show everyone that I was together and prepared and doing it, or making jokes about it, or using humor, or whatever, deflecting. And then the inside, it was just a everyday constant barrage of negative thoughts and this critic inside of me that was just like, nope, that's not good enough, this isn't good enough, like only showing at the flaws. I'd do something and there'd be one mistake and I would just be like hyper focusing on it, staying up at night worrying about it, just a total a-hole to myself, like total a-hole to myself. And that'll take a toll, that'll totally take a toll. And now, being an almost 40-something-year-old who's done a lot of stuff, I'm over being an a-hole to myself. Like, it's exhausting, and I've lived with chronic pain and migraines for many years, which I fully believe are a direct result of all this negativity and just barrage of self-criticism and grossness being directed back at me. And so here I am, and I've become a life coach, and I love it, and it's just such a neat thing to be able to hold space and ask powerful questions for other people to be able to, figure out their stuff and live their best lives and own who they are and embrace it. And lately I had an insight of feeling really inspired to write my story and share my story, which is scary. It's scary because, that's true vulnerability, and it's going to be putting out the hard side as well as the funny, exuberant, side that I default to and want to show more easily, and showing the hurt side and the scare side and the self-destructive side, of just daily barrage of negative thoughts and criticism, and making sure I'm checking in of this perfection that is unattainable and I'm creating in my own mind, so So I'm feeling though really inspired to like connect with the other me's out there. And it's interesting because I really want to connect with the little kid me's that are out there that are realizing that they might operate a little bit differently. And then the middle school me's that are realizing that maybe they have some talents but are just being consumed with negative thoughts and low self-esteem and all that crap. And then the adult me's, the mom me's, the professional me's who have reached a point in their career where their coping skills aren't working anymore, and things are unraveling and falling apart simply because of their brain wiring that it's not set up to be successful in a linear world, and the only reason, this is the other piece, the only reason that creatives are, not to say you can be linear and not creative, I'm sure there's people out there that can be, but from my learning, I've learned that there's two different types of minds. Okay, there's divergent thinkers and convergent thinkers. And so convergent thinkers like to take a whole bunch of information, right, and they pack it down and make it small in a linear, concise, orderly function. So, we've all know those people, right, where they're amazing of like being in a brainstorm, whatever, and being like, okay, so let's pare this down and, get the next steps. And they're the note takers and the linear thinkers. Amazing. And then there's the divergent thinkers, which I fall into that category, and I'm sure many of you either fall into it or know people who do. We are the people who take every little bit of information turns into, I'd like to call it like, I think about it as like firework thoughts. So you have a thought and that turns into a bunch of ideas that come off that thought. And then all those ideas come into a bunch of ideas that come off of all those thoughts. And then before you know it, it's just like, and it's just exploding of like all the possibilities and all the connections and all the whatever. And instead of it becoming concise and linear and like orderly, it's just going outward and just becoming bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And so if you don't have that type of brain and can't empathize with that, just think about it. Like literally every thought can turn into exponentially more thoughts and more connections and whatever, which is amazing. Like that's why we have inventions. That's why there's been progress in all categories of life. That's why there's an everything, iPhone, iPad, that's brilliant. And we need that. And that should be really valued in our culture. However, back in the day, that was also valued when it was hunter-gatherers, where we were out there making stuff happen and like finding things and being creative and being, out there and moving and shaking and making stuff happen. And then there were the farmers back home that were planting seeds and putting things in rows and making it all orderly and organized. Also amazing. The tricky part of being a divergent thinker is that along the lines, the society became more industrial, right? And more orderly in straight lines and everything in categories. So us with the other skill set kind of didn't have a place anymore. We're not the farmers. We don't want to keep logs of things or do it that way. Like that's just not our strength. And so suddenly that became labeled as different and other and a deficit. And then cut to how many years later where there's a lot of us living in the world that's set up to be more geared towards linear ways of thinking and being. And that's hard for us. And so it's not a pity party. It's not a woe's me or need special treatment or whatever. But I feel like there just needs to be, for ourselves, to give ourselves some compassion in that and be like, okay, there's a reason why this can be extra hard sometimes. Because my brain's true gifts are to look at things in a different way and be super creative, and also have it be really hard sometimes to organize our day and get into the car with all the things we need and, make appointments on time and, all the boring stuff that isn't exciting and isn't, doesn't need to have creativity or whatever. It just needs to get done, is super painful sometimes with this type of brain. And so I don't know. I'm just in this space of like embracing that that's not only okay, but it's important to reach out and connect with others who are dealing with this in their lives, either by it being themselves or having a child that maybe is an out of the box thinker and, is having a hard time, or, anywhere along that trajectory of that path. And so I don't know. Yeah, if you are a firework thinker that lives outside the box and likes to do things in a non-traditional way, please reach out and let me know. I would love to connect with you. And or if you live with someone that's like that and you are on the flip side, that's also can be a challenging place to be, you know? And I think if we can just keep building empathy and learning about these things and how they present differently in men and women and partners and different ages and all that stuff, like it's only going to make us be stronger so that everyone's skills, I mean, it sounds cliche maybe, but like so that everyone's skills and what we're meant to be in this world can be valued and celebrated, and we can get to a higher ground where we can support one another, right? Like, why is that so hard? Why is that so hard? Where we can support one another and just embrace each other for who we are and have each other just stop being jerks to ourselves about not fitting into this certain mold that we think society has created. Like, create your own damn mold and find other people who have created theirs, and I don't know, and embrace others who are very comfortable in their I don't know, their linear path or their linear way of being. So, okay, that's what I wanted to share today. So I'm sending you love and grace and, you know, patience during this holiday season where the extra scoops of stress and expectations and all of it can be a lot, you know? And so just giving ourselves permission to like not go level 10 on everything because it's impossible to, and just maybe level 2 some things and then knock a couple things out of the park and then feel really good about it. Or just skip it all together and eat Chinese food and watch movies. It doesn't matter. We're all good people, and it's going to be okay. So happy Thanksgiving, and I'll talk to you later. Thanks. Bye. Oh, wait, I forgot. If you like this, you know, write a comment, share it, do the social media things, and let me know your thoughts. If you'd like more posts kind of along this line of stream of conscious, let me know. Or if you want more tips about certain specific things, please let me know, and we'll just keep it going. Okay, take care. Bye.